We're back in America!
Pretty straightforward to get through customs. She took her passports, asked how long we were there, where we went. I think she was more interested in hearing where we went as a tourist, not as a customs official, if I was guessing. Then she took the keys, wanted to go inside the camper. I handed her the wrong key for the wrong door, so I had to get out and let her in. Took a quick look inside, I think probably just looking for people, and that was about it. We're on our way.
And she asked what we did for work. That was interesting.
Yep.
So Kyle got to say that he doesn't work.
Yep.
Hi everybody, welcome to our next video. We are back in the United States and we thought that we would do a Canada recap because even though we've been to Canada before, we haven't done anything like this in Canada, and it was completely different than what we expected. You know, we had expectations that it's very similar to the United States, and what we actually learned is it truly is a different country and things are different there. Today is our third day in Canada, and I'm actually quite disappointed. I don't think we can stay here. My main fear of going to Canada is if I would be able to work or not using my data. So I use my Verizon hotspot, and we called them before we left and they said, yes, your phone should work fine. You have Canada added to your plan. Everything should be good to go. And so when we crossed to the border, we were able to use our phones. But the thing is that Canada only allows us half a gig of data a day. Now we did know about this, and we knew that once you got your half gig used up, that they throttle you. After using our phones like very minimally, that half gig went like that. And the throttle is basically nothing. You could send an iMessage, you could load your mail, but to load a website or watch a video, like do anything, was just not going to happen. Last night I logged into work and I downloaded, you know, all my emails, get caught up because I had some data left, and I was only on my VPN for 45 minutes when I got throttled, and it was no longer usable. I did send Kyle to Bell, which is a Canadian carrier, just to see if maybe there's a jetpack or something that we could get with data that we might be able to use.
One of the big differences for us was getting cell service. As Nicole told you in the story, she needs Verizon data for work. We get a half a gig a day. We knew it was throttled, but we didn't know throttle meant useless. So I took off on the first work day we were there, which happened to be a Monday. Went to Bell first. Actually rode my bike because it was like 5 miles away. I'm like, I'll get some exercise. I'm gonna come back with a cell phone. I'm all excited. I went. The guy was gonna give me a new unlimited plan for Bell, and he even said I could use it in the United States. It was $95 a month Canadian. And I'm like, cool, we'll pay that for 4 months, no big deal. This means we can go, everything will be solved. He's like, I just need your passport for ID. So I come back to the camper, we grab our passports and we go. And the guy's like, okay, I need your credit card. I hand him my credit card and he's like, I need one on a Canadian bank. I'm like, I'm not Canadian. I don't have a Canadian credit card. So he tries a couple of my American ones and no good. So we thought, well, we'll see what happens. So we tried Rogers, same thing, no dice. So we go back with our tail between our legs and we're like, crap, this is terrible. What are we gonna do? But they do have some prepaid plans. So the next day we went back and they had a plan called Chatter. They sell at gas stations, whatever. It's kind of like a track phone type of thing. So went back there, got that, tried it out. It's limited to 3G speeds, but 3G speed is actually better than what we get at home anyway, for the most part. So we tried it out, and Nicole could get into work and do some stuff, but not everything. So we're like, what are we gonna do now? So finally, at our next stop, I went back to Bell, and they had a prepaid plan. So now we have 4 SIM cards, and we only have 2 phones. So we got to play the SIM card shuffle lots. We're taking SIM cards in and out. Who's got data? What do we need? What are we gonna do? And it was quite an adventure but we made it work. And the other thing we started doing is just looking for places that offer Wi-Fi. That was a huge help. We get caught up. So we made it work with a half a gig a day. And here we are.
I was super glad that Kyle was able to solve this huge problem for us, because that meant that we could stay in Canada and we could continue our trip. I was super bummed thinking that we weren't going to be able to continue and that we should have gone west to Colorado, and instead I pushed for us to go to Canada. But I'm super glad that we got all these SIM cards and we're constantly SIM card shuffling so that we have data and I can work, and everything worked out beautifully in the end. So while Kyle is trying to figure out all of this cell phone stuff for us to be able to stay in Canada, we still need to live and eat, and so he goes to the grocery store. And so he's doing this and I'm at the camper working. He gets back and he's just so frazzled, and he starts telling me about his trip to the grocery store and how it was so stressful. And I'm thinking, it's a grocery store. How bad could it really be?
That's when I found out we were really in a different country. So we've been to Canada before. We've even been in a grocery store. Newfoundland, we picked up some things. And I knew like milk came in the bag, and they do some weird stuff. But this was just way different. It felt like I was really in a foreign country, which shockingly I was. So everything, the packaging didn't look the same. Like you would go to buy sour cream, and all the Daisy sour cream or whatever brand you buy always looks the same no matter what grocery store you're in. But they don't have that brand in Canada. I don't even know what they have. So it was hard. The sour cream was labeled like 14% cream, and I'm like, what is that? So it was just so stressful figuring it out at first. I walked in there, and I think I went to a Walmart, and it was like no other Walmart I've ever been in. The layout was completely different. None of the stuff makes any sense. So you have to like hunt and peck for all the foods that have a different label, and it was just awful. So I think that was one of the only times I ever went to the store by myself. We actually just started planning where we would go as a team. So in Ontario, the stuff was in English and French, and every once in a while you get the French facing out, but for the most part everything, the English side was facing out. Well, fast forward to Quebec, that's a French-speaking province, and everything is in French. And then on the back side is in English. So now you have all this stuff that doesn't look the same. Now it's not even in English, and we're trying to figure out what it is we're buying. And it was pretty tough.
We found it a bit difficult to find various things, even once we got, comfortable with the idea that there are a lot of extra words on labels. But to find certain things, like in the spice section, here we have spices in like bottles, and they're labeled, in alphabetical order. But in Canada, like, they're in bags and they're not in alphabetical order. And so to find parsley was immensely troubling. Or snacks, like in our sections, we have like rows of frozen food snacks, potato skins or mozzarella sticks or pretzels with cheese, like all this delicious stuff. In Canada, they don't do any of that. It's no wonder that they're the size that they are and we're the size that we are. Your item selection there is extremely limited. It's not like here where you could have like rows of frosting, and there you get like, here are your 5 choices, or here are your 2 choices. You pick A or you pick B. So it was really interesting. A lot of times it was like, this is just what you get. So that was very new to us.
Or a lot of things were like the noodles. We have like 6 different brands of noodles and like 40 different varieties. And there it was like, here's your 1 box of rotini, and here's your 1 box of shells. Here's your 1 box of spaghetti, whatever. You don't get 6 different options. So it's pick this one or go without. They still had problems with a lot of empty shelves. So that was really not any different than what we had. So it's good to know other people are going through some of the same stuff we are. And it was always random stuff too. You go to some place and it's like, why is there no, milk today? And then you go back and the milk would be full. And then it's like, why is there no cheese? It was just random, weird stuff that didn't make any sense.
And we also had a hard time finding like paper plates and paper bowls. They don't really do that there. They don't do plastic bags when you leave the store. You have to bring your own reusable grocery bags with you. Or
you're putting everything in the cart and carrying it out. They're much more eco-conscious than we are. So it was kind of interesting because we used plastic grocery bags for trash bags, and we started to run out because we didn't take enough. Because we always go to the grocery store to use plastic bags, and it fits our needs for trash bags.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of interesting. We're kind of scrambling, running out of trash bags, which is not something you expect to have happen.
Yeah, because we have gobs at home.
Yeah, just like everyone else, we have a bag growing bags at home.
There was one lady that asked you how far away we were from the Great Lakes, and you just whipped out a number.
Yeah, she was like, "Ooh, look at you using kilometers," because they knew we were American. And then I told her, my number was pretty close, but I told her that, I said, "You don't have any idea where I live. I could have made up any number anyway."
Another thing in Canada is that things are not in pounds, things are in grams or kilograms.
So it was fun buying like turkey or hamburger because we're buying it in, grams or kilograms, like Nicole said. And another thing that was really hard is just trying to buy stuff at the deli. I was trying to buy some ham to make sandwiches, and they had a chart. It was like, this will make, 300 grams will make 6 sandwiches. And it's like, well, is that one of my sandwiches, or is that, who knows? And then I remember, how many grams are in a pound is 454, or 2.2 kilograms per, or 2.2 pounds per kilogram. You get all that stuff, but then you're trying to figure out, okay, this stuff is $8 for 200 grams. What does that mean per pound? Because not all deli meat's the same price, and I don't want to buy stuff that's $25 a pound compared to this stuff that might be $10. So it was really hard to do the math in my head, and then you throw in stuff in foreign languages or French speaking people, and then you get people in line behind you. It was quite a challenge.
Parlez-vous anglais? Quebec was just, as soon as you cross over into Quebec, like everything goes French.
So it was pretty fun driving the camper. I've got, a full-size truck and almost a 30-foot camper behind us, and everything turns to French. So I don't speak any French. Now I know a little bit more, but it was pretty fun not knowing what any of the signs meant, or, low bridge or any of that stuff. It was a little nerve-wracking, not really having a clue what was going on. I went down a wrong way on a one-way 3 times in Quebec City without really even noticing. First time I went down, and I was like, man, these cars are all facing me, and this is only one lane. This is weird. I turned down another road. I'm like, man, I did it again. And then there was a guy in a limo at the end of the one way where I had to turn off, and he was very unimpressed with me coming the wrong way. And I almost hit him with my mirror because I don't think he was expecting me to be there, and he was just like, what are you doing? So it was really hard going into France, because that's basically where we went.
People would just talk to us like we spoke French because that's the native language there, and they just say stuff so fast, and you don't know how to just say just stop, because we don't know what the hell you're saying. And so you just wait for them to finish, and then you say, do you speak English and French? And sometimes they do, and then they'll repeat it, and sometimes they don't, and then they'll just walk away. And so it was really interesting. We may have gotten yelled at by like a grocery store, like a cashier a couple times, and it's kind of funny because I had asked her if she spoke English and French, but she didn't seem to acknowledge. And when she was talking to us, she just kept saying the same French stuff louder at us
and a little slower.
But we still didn't know what she was saying.
So while we were in Quebec, we decided we wanted an alcoholic treat. So somehow both of us managed to buy non-alcoholic drinks. They had a whole display of beer, and I bought a 12-pack of non-alcoholic beer. Went to have the first one, and I looked at it, and it says 0.5% alcohol. And I'm like, oh, you dummy, you bought your beer. And then Nicole kept buying wine coolers, and it took her a lot longer to figure out that hers were non-alcoholic.
2 weeks. It took me 2 weeks to figure out that they weren't alcoholic. They were so good. They were in the wine cooler section. And they were so good, I just kept buying them. And it wasn't until later my parents asked me, well, how much alcohol is in it? It's like, I don't know, I can't read the damn label. And I'm like studying it, and I'm like, oh, it says in very, very small, size 1 font, non-alcoholic. So one thing that was kind of interesting is we stayed at a Boondockers welcome where the host only spoke French and the guest only spoke English. And so I was constantly using Google Translate to type in, you know, what I was trying to communicate to him, copying the French words and pasting it in the message to him, and then he would communicate back to me in French, and so I'd copy that, go back to Google Translate, convert it back to English, and be like, oh, okay. And so we never actually met these people. I was willing to, you know, I even practiced something that I had prepared, and I was like, if he comes out, I'm gonna say this stuff. And he never actually came out.
Yeah, it was really cool that he let us stay there, because he easily could have just said, no, I'm not going to even attempt to deal with someone that only speaks English. I think he knew we weren't going to be able to communicate, because the day we got there, he brought us out an extension cord, and he was only on the other side of our camper. We were actually sitting out in our chairs, just, you know, minding our own business. And this place was pretty cool because he had a separate driveway for us, which was a really cool spot for a Boondockers Welcome host. So we're just sitting there minding our own business, and he's only like 20 feet away from us. I'm sure he heard us talking, but he didn't want to come around the corner because the language barrier. We would have just all looked at each other and not been able to say anything.
Bonjour.
Yeah. Merci. Au revoir.
Something that I really enjoyed is having our American discount, which is what I call the exchange rate, basically, because when we were in a store or buying something and I saw that price, I knew I'm gonna be paying like a third less.
Yeah, when we first got there, the Canadian dollar was worth about 78 cents. And then when we left, it got down to about 73 cents. So we had picked up quite a decent amount of buying power. And it was pretty cool. So everyone knows things in Canada are a little more expensive. But we kept pretty close to our food budget for what we had planned. We weren't really spending too much more. And things seemed pretty comparable. Now, I know prices have gone up, so it was hard to make a one-to-one comparison since we were gone for a while. But we really weren't feeling like we were spending too much more money. So that was pretty nice. And then gas, everyone knows, is more expensive in Canada as well. But with the exchange rate, it helped bring the cost down and make it a little more tolerable for us. Just filled up our last fuel stop in Canada. So in case you're wondering, the price in Canada is listed as cents per liter. So for example, this gas that I bought was 172.7 cents per liter, or $1.72.7 per liter. That's what they've been listing the gas price as. It was a little confusing when we first got here. So I took that number and I converted it into gallons. So you multiply it by 3.79 to get the price in Canadian per gallon, which comes out to $6.55. I already did the math ahead of time. $6.55 Canadian a gallon. So it comes out to $4.78 a gallon US. The current exchange rate is about 73 cents Canadian dollar to US dollar. So we get a pretty favorable exchange rate. It's gone down about 5 cents since we've been here, so our dollar goes even further. So a quick check of Gas Buddy at our next stop in Maine shows the gas prices are about $3.50 right now. Down the Maine coast, there's even some that are in the 3 teens. So as you can see, Canadians are paying significantly more for gas. We're going to have a lot of savings when we go back. It's been pretty interesting here. I don't know about food prices. Everything seems pretty comparable, but I haven't bought any food at home. But the gas prices here are definitely more expensive. A guy filled up 2 5-gallon diesel containers at our last stop, and it was 100 Canadian dollars for him, about $10 a gallon for diesel. So a pretty significant expense here for Canadian gas. So one thing that was different is every gas pump you have to hold. They don't have the auto lock. So that was a pretty obnoxious thing. You know, I'd like to wash the window or whatever, go throw some trash away. You know, you got to sit there and pump for gas.
They're all surprised that our windshield is dirty. We love boondocking, but in Canada, there's like very little. There is a such thing called crown camping. So the government has land, just like here in the US, where it can be used for camping or various different recreation activities. So there is such a thing, but a lot of people don't like to share their sites. They like to keep them to themselves. And so even when you would look on iOverlander, freecampsites.net, Campendium, there's not a lot out there. And so for this trip, we pretty much used Boondockers Welcome a ton, and then campgrounds. I would, of course, look for places that had Wi-Fi because it was more helpful for us in our data limitations. And we also learned that in Canada, lots of people almost seem to prefer to travel using vans. And so there were some times where I would go to request a boondocker and we would be, I'm always doing, max 30-foot RV. Well, they might be thinking max 30-foot, like just total, like a van, and not a truck and trailer or a fifth wheel. And so we actually got declined once, even though we were within that limit, because the guy said we wouldn't fit in his driveway. I had to really look at the pictures and see what boondocker am I actually requesting to see if it would be a good fit for us or not.
Way more truck campers too. I was surprised at how many of those there were. They're pretty rare, I think, in the United States for the most part. So lots and lots of them, especially in the campgrounds. There was quite a few. So not to get too political, but Michigan, our current governor, has said her campaign was to run on fix the damn roads.
Fix the damn roads.
But luckily, Michiganders, we found some roads that are way worse. The roads in Canada are just terrible. Even some of the major highways, we would come in and everything would be thrown around. We have a coat rack over the door. Somehow it would come off the door, or that would be on the ground. The freezer was open before. Our ice cream was melting. Our wardrobe was open every time. I would open the fridge and everything would come spilling out. The roads were just absolutely terrible. And then when you got off the main roads onto some of the secondary roads that we would have to travel on, they were even worse. They had some construction spots where people would slow way down because it would go from asphalt to gravel, and these people would come to a crawl, and there'd be just this little tiny bump, and it made us laugh every time because just the normal course of the road would make you compress your spine, and these people were slowing down to a crawl because there was a little bit of gravel on the road. Their roads were just some of the worst roads I've ever driven on. It was really amazing how bad they were.
Yeah, and if you ever have, we like to avoid tolls. And so we'll take a little bit of a side route to avoid the toll. Don't do that in Canada, okay? Pay the $2 and take the main road. If you take the non-toll road, chances are it's not going to be very nice. There's going to be huge potholes in there, bumps. Just stay on the main roads.
So with going to a new country, we need different money. Canada uses their weird monopoly looking money, and so we needed to get some of it, and we went through a different set of hoops to get it, and trying to figure out what the best way was. The best way you're going to get the best bang for your buck is to just use your credit card, but not everyone will use a credit card, so sometimes you need cash. And we kind of figured out we could use an ATM when we took some money in the States, and then we exchanged it at currency exchange, and we lost, I think we got $180 and we lost about $6. And then we got it out of a Canadian ATM, but our bank charges us a foreign fee, and it was hard to find surcharge-free ATMs. So we were kind of getting nickel and dime there. So, and then I went to a bank and exchanged, while we were in New York, at Thousand Islands, we grabbed some American money, and I took it into a bank, and they charged a $3 fee for non-customers to exchange the money. So we kind of figured it out. It doesn't really matter how you get the money. It's all about the same. You're just, no matter what, you're going to waste a little bit of money if you got to use cash over a credit card.
So to remind everybody of Geography 101, the sun rises in the east. And so when you plan your trip in the fall to go east, more east than the United States, the sun starts to set earlier and earlier. And then when you move east and you enter a different time zone, the Atlantic time zone, it starts to get hard to do things after work because my workday now ends at 6 o'clock local time and the sun sets at 6:30, which means there's nothing to do. So that I probably wouldn't plan another trip east in the fall knowing that. Fun fact for you, the Costco in Canada is MasterCard only. The Costco's in the United States are Visa only. So if you're going to Costco in Canada, make sure you have a MasterCard because you won't be able to use another credit card.
Yes, we found this out after I tried to get gas at the Costco. Pulled in, got my Costco card out, put it in, it takes it, and I go to use my card and it says error or denied or something. I try another one, it does the same thing. And I try another one, because like any good American, I've got like 6 credit cards in my wallet. And the only MasterCard we have would have charged a fee, so it kind of defeated the purpose of getting the Costco gas. So we later found out through Google that you can only use a MasterCard at the Canadian Costco's. One thing that we noticed in Canadian parks is, like our parks, they list a time for how long a hike is supposed to take. And in the American parks, we usually come in ahead of that. You know, nothing crazy. We don't really linger at things, and we move pretty quickly, so we're usually ahead of the time. In the Canadian parks, we were at the long end or overtime on almost all of them. And it was pretty funny to see that because it was just obvious that Canadians were in better shape than us. You know, we're going up these hills and stuff, and we're getting passed. Very rarely on American hiking trails are we getting passed. Usually the only people that pass us are little kids, because they're little kids and we're not little kids anymore. So it's kind of humbling, you know, but it's also kind of funny because the Canadians are in better shape. They're crazy bikers, like they're going faster than I could go anywhere on a bike. I wouldn't even feel safe going that fast, and they're just zooming by us. And it's a little embarrassing, but we actually had a guy while we were biking in Montreal pass us. He was jogging and we were biking. We actually did stop and let him pass because he was catching us. We didn't make it awkward, we just pulled over. But the fitness level of the Canadians is definitely much more. So if you're hiking in a Canadian park, beware that when a time says 3 hours, it might take you 3.5. It caught us a couple times where we made a little Blair Witch Project movie because we were out a little late.
Hiking in the dark.
Yep.
So even though we had some challenges, we were still super grateful that we got to go to Canada. Like I had said before, like I have been wanting to go and do this trip for a year, and I had it like all rooted out in my head, and it was almost like, oh, we're not gonna go, but then we did, and then oh, we didn't even talk about the hurricane. And Nova Scotia was awesome. Gaspésie Peninsula was awesome. To pick between the two of those, which one was the favorite? It was very hard because, I mean, I think Gaspésie had the wildlife, which we love, but Nova Scotia also had super cool scenery too. Canada is just super awesome. I think everybody should go and do the same trip that we did and see the same stuff.
Minus the hurricane. Nobody needs to be avoiding a hurricane in a foreign country. It was a lot more challenging than it needed to be. So, as you know, we're back in the States now. We've got some pretty cool stops coming up. We're going to be in the Boston area, in Salem, right around Halloween. So stay tuned for that one. That'll be pretty cool. And we've also got lots of waterfalls that we're going to show you in the New York area. So should be a pretty exciting time. And we've got an off the beaten path unexpected stop that most people probably don't know about, which is pretty cool, which might actually be America's next national park.
I am grateful to be back in the United States where things are normal to me, like temperatures in Fahrenheit, things are in pounds. They have stuff at the grocery store that I haven't been able to have for like a couple months. Grab all of the boxes. Grab all the rolls. Grab all the bottles. Don't make fun of me. Canada. This is real A1. I'll be seeing you soon, Ken.